Hi, this is Michael Talis with the Talis Team. You probably heard about the Commission's lawsuit and the settlement that rocked the real estate industry earlier this year. And while the final settlement approval is not scheduled until November, the mandated changes to the business practices were already implemented. Nationwide, the deadline for the implementation of the new practices was August 17th, and here in the Bay Area, they went into effect on August 13th. First, let's talk about what these changes are and what they're not. This court decision and the resulting settlement says nothing about the amount of the commissions to be paid to the real estate professionals representing the buyers or the sellers. All commissions are negotiable, same as it was the standard of practice before the settlement. The goal of the settlement is to separate the buyer-broker commissions from seller-broker commissions and bring more transparency to the consumers. The way it used to work before the new practices were deployed was that the seller would sign an agreement to list their home for sale. This agreement would be between the seller and the real estate agent and brokerage they choose to represent them. By signing this contract, the seller would agree to pay their broker a certain percentage of the final sale price as a payment for their agent's professional services. Let's say 5%. Then the seller, in the same agreement, would instruct their agent to pay part of this amount to the agent representing the buyer. So, if the total commission was 5%, typically half of it, or 2.5%, would be designated for payment to the buyer's agent, 2.5% to the listing agent, and 2.5% for the buyer's agent. Note that the percentages I'm using here are just an example. All commissions were and still are negotiable. What's important is that the commissions were negotiated between the seller and their agent. Neither buyer nor their agent has any say in how much buyer's agents will get paid for their work. In the old way of doing business, all commissions were rolled into the purchase price. Money came from the buyer, was deposited into the escrow, and then distributed to the seller as well as the agents representing the seller and the buyer. Buyer representation was not free, but the commission payments were hidden from the buyers to a large extent because the amount of compensation to the agents on both sides was set by the seller. Usually the buyers were not involved in these decisions. Under the new system, Real Estate 2.0, the seller will hire an agent to sell their home and will negotiate the commission level exactly like it was done before the changes. The compensation will be set only for the listing services. Taking numbers from my early example, the seller will pay only 2.5%, not 5%. At the same time, the buyer will have to separately negotiate with their agent the amount of commissions they agree to pay and sign a buyer-broker agreement. This agreement is an equivalent of the listing agreement everyone is familiar with, but on the buyer side. One of the terms of the agreement is the commission level. By signing the agreement, the buyer will commit to paying a certain percentage of the sale price to their agent as payment for the work done. Let's summarize what to expect in the new system now if you want to buy or sell a home in the near future. Number 1. Sellers still have to sign a listing agreement when they decide to sell their home with the help of an agent. They still will be responsible for paying commissions, but only to their own agent. Sellers are no longer required to offer any compensation to the buyer's agent in order for their homes to be listed on the MLS. Number 2. Sellers still may agree to pay all or part of the buyer-broker fees if they decide to do so. And I will talk about the pros and cons of this decision later in this video. Number 3. Buyers have to sign a buyer-broker agreement if they want to be represented by a professional in the purchase of their new home. In this agreement, in addition to other terms, the buyer will agree to pay their agent for the professional services their agents perform. Number 4. Showing homes and submitting purchase offers now require active buyer-broker agreements. And finally, number 5. MLS, Multiple Listing Service, the main repository of information about homes offered for sale, is prohibited from collecting and distributing any data related to any broker compensation. And let me say it again, all agent commissions are negotiable. They're not set by law. If you have any questions about how this new system works, please post your questions in the comments below and I will respond to all of them. Also, I can share with you samples of the latest listing, buyer broker, and purchase agreements. Please email me your requests. My email is in the description of this video. It seems pretty straightforward, right? Both the buyer and the seller are negotiating commissions with their respective agents and are responsible for paying professional service fees at the close of escrow. But there is also a problem created by this new way of doing business. As in my example, the buyer is responsible for paying commission fee and it goes on top of the purchase price. Let's say 2.5%. Yes, all commissions are negotiable. This is just an example. In the current lending environment, this amount has to come out of buyer's savings, cash money. According to all lenders I talked to, none of them will roll commissions in the mortgage because this amount is not supported by the home value. Commission payment is an unsecured debt. It is similar to a credit card cash advance. At this point, buyers have a choice to make. They can buy a home unrepresented. In this case, you as a buyer don't have to pay any commissions. Save some money, but you won't have an expert advisor working by your side, a professional who buys and sells real estate for a living. It is like going to court without an attorney while the opposing side is all lawyered up. Most sellers in our area have agents and will utilize their skills and experience dealing with the buyers. If you decide to work with an agent, the current system will give you 3 options on how to pay commissions to your agent. It reminds me of medical insurance. When you go to a doctor, you're responsible to pay for the service. Your medical insurance may cover 100% of the cost, none, or anything in between. In no particular order. Option number 1. You as a buyer will pay the whole commission out of pocket. If you take this route and have a loan, consult your lender about the amount of down payment and size of your cash reserves required for the most favorable loan terms. And if you are paying cash, you have to make sure you can cover the whole amount, including other closing costs. Option number 2. You can ask the seller to pay the full commission amount out of proceeds of sale. This is how real estate commissions used to be paid, and many sellers are familiar with the old system and may agree to buyer's request. And finally, the third option is combination of the first two. You may decide to pay part of the commission out of pocket and ask the seller to contribute the rest. Know that the second and the third option are subject to the seller agreeing to the terms of your offer. The latest purchase agreement form has a section dedicated to the buyer broker commission. The amount of seller's contribution toward buyer's agent fees became one of the additional negotiation terms, just like other closing credits to the buyer, home warranty cost, or a credit towards the termite damage repairs. Why would the seller agree to pay for the buyer's agent? Let's consider the pros and cons. If the seller decides to pay, the direct benefit is the savings, more money going to the seller's account. On another hand, refusing to cooperate with the buyers in paying buyer broker commissions may reduce the potential pool of buyers. Bay Area housing is very expensive, and many buyers have to stretch to the limit to buy a home here. If they have to pay the whole professional fee to their agent out of pocket, it may affect their ability to obtain the necessary financing for the purchase, and in turn will reduce the prices they were willing to offer. Sophisticated sellers always focus on the net proceeds of sale, the amount going to their account after all selling expenses. Accepting an offer at the right price while agreeing to pay buyer broker fees may produce the highest return to the seller and may be in the best interest of both the buyer and the seller. At the time of this video, the new system was in effect for only 3 weeks, and we don't have enough information to share with you on how often the sellers agree to pay buyer broker commissions and which of these 3 options will become the most common. This is Michael Talis with the Talis Team. If you are thinking about buying or selling a home within a year or even 2, let's get together on the phone or on Zoom to review what you need to do to enter the market and to complete a successful purchase or sale. My contact information is in the description of this video. Keep in mind that I'm available in the evenings and on weekends, anytime when you're off work. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Till next time.